Hi, so I'm not sure what happened to Nathaniel, my Catholic friend, who I was going to discuss the Turin Shroud. I think it's an amazing relic of shown to be of the time of Jesus Christ. I'm a Muslim, by the way, and I'm very interested in it because Muslims are interested in Jesus as a prophet. Let's play this thing. It's fascinating. It's a miracle in terms of evidence that secular scientists kind of have to agree with it because it's. I mean, just see the evidence, and you'll probably be blown away. Like the what's hidden in uh, this relic.
Verified the Shroud of Turin. Have you seen that?
They used to think that it was only a couple hundred years old.
Yeah.
And now they've changed that.
Yeah, they said no, it's back then.
They also don't understand how it was made, which to me is very fascinating because it's not paint. They don't know what caused the image itself and how that technology would have even been available.
It wasn't. No.
A couple thousand years ago.
An intense light, atomic, to leave almost like a photographic imprint on a piece of cloth.
Yeah.
Urged, beaten. The hairstyle was from the 1st century. And the pollens that they found in the cloth were from that region.
Yeah.
Also, the weave was a 1st century weave. And another guy, an archaeologist who I knew, told me that if you look close, you can see that the image of a Tiberius coin marks on the eyes. Now, I don't know if that's real or not. I've never actually checked that, but that there's images of Tiberius on the coin.
So they would put the coins over the eyes?
Just recently.
How did I get that clip? I mean, that was good, but that's not the mind-blowing stuff. Somehow I missed out the fact that it's a. Did he mention that it was a photographic negative? Like, there was no idea that there's no concept of a photograph, and maybe because we've got digital pictures, we don't. A lot of people don't know what photographic negatives are. So when you had film photographs, you had to start off with a photographic negative and it to be developed into a normal photograph. And so why would anybody create a photographic negative? Because that's really hard to understand. It's actually pretty much impossible to create. It's like unintuitive thing to do. So there's that, but there's something even more mind-blowing. Here's another clip. I don't know how I sometimes get clips and I don't. Maybe I'm in such a rush I don't get the best clips, but let's see. Hopefully this next clip will be better. 3D. Wow, this is pretty epic stuff coming up. Okay. How do I share the correct thing? Oh, there's all these new buttons all the time. Why did it replace? Yes. That one. Okay. Restream keeps changing its layouts. I get confused. The software I'm using for the stream. Let's go for this.
Itself is a mystery. It is unexplainable. The image on the shroud is not painted, drawn, or dyed. No pigment or brushstrokes have been found on it. When viewed as a negative image, it appears more detailed and lifelike. This is something that wasn't understood until it was first photographed in 1898. The image also contains 3D information, which is extremely rare. When processed by image analyzers like the NASA VP8, it produces a three-dimensional relief unlike typical photographs or paintings. So it produces like a topographical 3D shape. Amazing. The marks on the shroud match exactly with the wounds of the crucifixion of Jesus. Now this is going to be really amazing, and this is one of the strong evidences that supports the fact that this shroud really seems to be that of Jesus. The bloodstains on the head are compatible with a crown of thorns, and the crown wasn't like a ring that you might see. It was more like a helmet, a full crown, so to speak. And that poked into the head of Jesus, producing a lot of blood. And what's interesting is on the top of the head, it's very, very sensitive. So we can see all throughout the head of Jesus marks from this crown of thorns. And what's interesting is that no person in recorded history in the Roman Empire was ever crucified with a crown of thorns. So just validates it and is compatible, consistent with that of Jesus's crucifixion.
Okay, so just to kind of clarify, first of all, photographic image is insane. Like, people didn't even understand that it was a negative until not long ago. There was some question on how old the material is because parts of the edge of the material was replaced a couple of hundred years ago. So even a couple of hundred years ago, nobody understood what a photograph was. So let's say, for argument's sake, it was only a couple of hundred years ago rather than 2,000 years. But if you look at the middle of the main part of the Turin Shroud is 2,000 years. But if you look at the edge, the bits that were replaced or something, sure, maybe a few hundred, I think, years old. Even then, you didn't have photographs and negatives. So it really doesn't. It is a really strange relic. And then on top of that, the idea, so most photographs don't have, if you took a photograph of you, it would not have 3D data. The way this relic has been produced, and even the way it's been produced, people don't understand it because it's not like a normal photograph. And I'll talk about that in a second. So normal photographs don't have 3D information. This one does. So some things have 3D information, and the scanner is designed for, I'm not sure really how it works and why certain things have 3D information, but it's designed for looking at planets and getting 3D views of planets. So yeah, so most photographs don't have 3D information. This does. That's some pretty amazing. And it correlates with all the story of Jesus Christ and all the things that are unique to him that was recorded in history amazingly, like the crown of thorns. So yeah, all pretty amazing. And so then you might say, who is this? Is it some other person who happened to have the same story as Jesus? And well, it's pretty convincing, let's just say. Let's see, is anybody in the chat? Nope. Okay. It's if there's a, you could say, the way I look at it, if there's a God, then God's clearly trying to make it really clear that there was a person called Jesus and trying to make sure he doesn't turn into just a legend, but there was really a person and something to believe in. Now, in terms of how could this photograph be made, it's not like I thought maybe this photograph, this image of blood and whatever that was produced in the material that was covering Jesus or whoever it was like through a pinhole camera effect, like some light squeezing through like the cracks of the cave, but then asking AI, it told me that would create an image of outside. So you have to have the light coming from inside, underneath the covers, basically from Jesus' body, which is really weird. I mean, that's the theory. Like, that's the only way people can figure out how that image could have been made. So it didn't mean that there was a brilliant flash of light coming from Jesus' body. I don't know what that weird sound is coming from my house, but anyway. Oh, it's just flies popping. That's what it is. Okay, so we can't figure out what created that image. That's just still a miracle or an illusion. just if you don't call it a miracle, call it just an unknown, let's just say. So it's pretty amazing. Let's look at, I think it's always worth looking at the alternative ideas, like eyewitnesses, uh, for people who say it's a fake. So let's quickly have a look at that. Maybe I'll close that, and then do it from click on. So I didn't spend too much time trying to find. There could be better clips, but and you can check out. We'll find these clips in the document in the description below.
Empirical.
So I would look at how long this person takes to get to his point, like starting with insults rather than with facts, which tells you something about the fact that he doesn't really have the facts.
Evidence for God's existence. The Shroud of Turin, first discovered in 1354. This is supposedly the same cloth used to cover dead Jesus when he was buried in a tomb. Wow, look how clearly you can see his face. There's even bloodstains that match his stab wounds and hand holes.
Does this guy always have a hole, or is that a big reveal?
Now let's assume that this is real. This is actually the same cloth used to bury Jesus. What does that actually prove? That Jesus died and was buried in a cloth? Okay. It does nothing to demonstrate that Jesus was a god or the son of a god or rose from the dead. Realistically, we have no way of actually knowing who this belonged to. It could be from any random guy. It's not like we have a sample of Jesus's DNA to compare it with. But what we do find from a close examination of the blood is that it's not blood. It's just dye made from red ochre and vermilion. Blood stain pattern analysis shows that the stains don't make any sense and are unrealistic for a crucifixion. The shroud's fabric was made from a herringbone weave, one far more complex than any type of fabric we see used in burials during the 1st century. Radiocarbon dating methods from 3 independent sources place the actual age of the shroud between 1260 and 1390, the same time when it first went on display at a French church. Based on these facts, we can be supremely confident that the Shroud of Turin is a fraud. But even if it were real, it wouldn't prove anything.
Okay, so he makes some interesting points, but he knows that he's ignoring lots of facts. Like, he should have said, "Oh, there are tests that show that the center of the material age is dated to Jesus' time, but there were materials, possibly not the original materials that are a lot newer. So obviously they're going to have a different weave, a modern weave, and they're going to be just dated a lot newer, a couple of 100 years ago." So yeah, he's not being very honest. He's just making a YouTube video to get attention or whatever it is. And so yeah, the fact that he left out lots of facts just shows he's not being honest. Okay, but his point that it could be anybody is possible. You've seen in an earlier video that it was very unusual for anybody to have a crown of thorns, and there's a lot more that can be said that the marks, the blood stains, kind of demonstrate somebody who's been not just put on a cross, but also been flogged in the way that Jesus was recorded to have been flogged in the Bible. So for him to say it's no sense or whatever, well, experts say it does make sense and it matches Jesus' story a lot. It's pretty amazing. Just to say it doesn't matter means you're just not interested in the topic. Okay. So it shows all the signs of the cross for people who've kind of gone into this. It shows the hand marks, I think. I think he's buried like this or wrapped like this, and also there's some evidence that there's nails have gone through his heels in the right place for somebody who's been nailed to a cross. And even to the detail of knee injuries when he fell carrying the cross. So, yeah, very, very, very interesting. um, but it could be anybody, that's true. And it doesn't prove this person was God, that's true. Um, but nonetheless, very interesting. And does support that it probably was Jesus, if anybody. Next thing though, let me see, maybe Nathaniel's joining in a minute. Nathaniel's saying, I thought he could make the time, but he's saying, okay. Sure. So Nathaniel's just apologizing. I think there was some confusion. Maybe he wants the next weekend or something. But let's just do short clip. Maybe short clips are interesting for people rather than a long discussion. So the question from a Muslim point of view is this God, whoever it is, even if it is Jesus, and I think it's quite likely to be Jesus because it matches so many things and things that don't happen by accident. There's so many things that just happen to match. The question is, did Jesus say he was a God and that he would this process of coming out alive afterwards doesn't mean he is God? And Jesus said himself, and I've got maybe I'll put the document on the screen. Let's see what Nathaniel is messaging me at the moment. If you need to, I can try to get ready very quickly and jump on it. Yeah. So yeah, Nathaniel's offering to join right now. So he'll try to quickly get on the screen. So let's see if he does. Yeah. So from Jesus' point of view, let's quickly put that on the screen, and then maybe later on Nathaniel will join us and we'll kind of review all of this stuff. Replace. The fact that Jesus was put in the shroud and maybe came out alive possibly afterwards, and if this was his shroud and that he did exist and all that kind of stuff, there is Jesus actually said he would what did he say? Let's get his own words. Explain that he would show one particular sign, and that would be the sign of Jonah. And the sign of Jonah is, let's show that rather than this document. Essentially, Jonah, who went into a whale and came out alive, he didn't come back from the dead. He just survived, rather than was revived from the dead. So he said, just as Jonah was in the stomach of in the sea creature for 3 days, a whale usually. It's usually understood for 3 days and 3 nights, the Son of Man, that's himself, will be in the heart of the earth, basically in a tomb or sarcophagus, however you say it, basically a temporary tomb for 3 days and 3 nights. So according to the Bible, he basically was there for 3 days and 3 nights, if you count, as apparently some Jews do, that if he's there for parts of 3 days and 3 nights, so Friday night, Saturday and Sunday morning, that's 3 days and 3 nights. The men, or 3 days, maybe the translation's not quite right, because I'm not sure if it was 3 nights. You can't really be 3 days and 3 nights, can you? Anyway, the men of Nineveh will stand up. So he'll come out. So he'll be in this tomb for 3 days and 3 nights. In a similar way, and then therefore he'll come out after that. So that's the sign of Jonah. Jonah was somebody who was in the sea creature, and then he came out. And in the same way, he will be in the tomb and will eventually come out. But he wouldn't come out as a god. He wouldn't come back from the dead. He would just survive being dead. He would just be revived, I guess, rather than, is that word? Revived? Well, he just wouldn't die. He just survive is the best word. Yeah, that's what it's like doing it because they repented and stuff like that. Okay, so anyway, that's the sign of Jonah that he promised. So even if he was this person in the shroud and he survived, how would that prove that he was a god? It just mean that he did what he said he would do and survive it, unless God, the Christian God, Jesus, was wrong, or he couldn't explain, he didn't understand what happened to Jonah in the first place. So let's see if Nathaniel, starting up the computer. Appreciate that, Nathaniel. Okay. Okay, so yeah, that's the quick summary of the whole scenario. It is incredible that more and more evidence is coming out to support this relic, this ancient relic. The 3D evidence wasn't there before. In even the photographic evidence, the idea that it was a photographic negative, that wasn't there before. So it's just becoming more and more acceptable. At the end, there was the person who claimed that the shroud is a fake. That's, I mean, sorry, the one when this person who said it was a fake said it was pigments. I researched that and said that's just not true. And how was it? I mean, it's generally accepted that it wasn't painted. And even if it was a bunch of pigments, it comes back to the miracle, I would say, that the whole product was a photographic negative. Like, why would anybody make a photographic negative? Because the whole concept doesn't make sense. And then how could they do it? That would be incredible. And people already said it wasn't painted, so they would have not to paint it, but like maybe dab it microscopically to create the effect. So yeah, it'll be interesting what Nathaniel's got to say about it. I think one of the reasons why I'm doing this clip is because the lack of awareness of this amazing artifact, this amazing evidence in support of Jesus' existence. So,
Hello,
hey,
sir.
Nathaniel, appreciate you joining us short notice. Confusion happens. Okay, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I had a debate last night, and it got done at 11 p.m.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep till then. I got up at 4 a.m. to do some work, and then I went back to sleep. I got back up again and went to church. Got done with church, and I said, "I've got a phone call at 3
Yeah.
o'clock." I said, "Oh, I'll get a chance to take a nap." And I guess I made a mistake. I
Yeah.
am sorry. I guess
No
I don't know.
problem. No,
So
no,
I
it
think you told me,
happens.
can you do this weekend? I said I got luck. Yeah, keep going on. So I looked like a rain muffin
Yeah.
because I've got really bad bedhead. So I decided the hat would be better than hair stuff.
Oh, okay. Looking cool. That's cool.
How are you?
Okay. I'm pretty good. Glad that you're here. I mean, I've had a long day myself, so but this is so interesting. I'm gonna quickly go through the videos. But before I go through the videos, have you heard of the Turin Shroud or know much about it?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. In fact, I do a lot of. Well, I shouldn't say this. I haven't done work in a while, but I'm in touch with young Earth creationist uh, Catholics, and that are kind of in the world, and they talk about the Shroud of Turin a lot. It's one of the most interesting things. I think we've even talked on a different stream about the Pantocrator icon, and it's the most accurate icon of Christ, and it's an Egyptian icon, and they've measured it against the Shroud of Turin, basically to check its accuracy. So,
Oh, I can't
yeah.
remember discussing something like this with you before, but interesting. I'm going to play this video. I think it's pretty amazing by itself. The second video planned.
In fact,
Just
I'll tell you something else
go on.
interesting. I've
Yeah.
I've been involved in helping to make the Shroud of Turin because me and my wife have made. I didn't actually do the work, but linens for the Mass, and so when Jesus Christ does his sacrifice at the Mass, a representation of the cross, they lay him on a linen, or actually, I think they lay him on it. Just depends on how they do it, but so I call it the Shroud of Turin, the purificator. So, all right, go ahead.
So, like, you tried to create a replica, or what do you mean?
No, I was kind of nerding out about that. No, so in the Catholic Mass, they have to have linens that are made that they have to be handmade. They're very very high quality out of real linen, and we have made them. And because the Blessed Sacrament is Jesus Christ's actual body, and the Mass is the actual sacrifice on the cross, that
Okay.
linen is basically the Shroud of Turin. That's what I would tell
Oh, okay. Symbolically or something. Okay. Right. Yeah.
people.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
good.
Okay.
No,
Uh,
it's fine.
yeah. Okay. So yeah, let's just play this video again. I
Self
just so you know, I went through the basics, went through some of the videos and whatever. But let's play again. I'll be interested in your reaction to this.
is a mystery. It is unexplainable. The image on the shroud is not painted, drawn, or dyed. No pigment or brushstrokes have been found on it. When viewed as a negative image, it appears more detailed and lifelike. This is something that wasn't understood until it was first photographed in 1898. The image also contains 3D information, which is extremely rare. When processed by image analyzers like the NASA VP8, it produces a three-dimensional relief unlike typical photographs or paintings. So it produces like a topographical 3D shape. Amazing. The marks on the shroud match exactly with the wounds of the crucifixion of Jesus. Now, this is going to be really amazing, and this is one of the strong evidences that supports the fact that this shroud really seems to be that of Jesus. The bloodstains on the head are compatible with a crown of thorns, and the crown wasn't like a ring that you might see. It was more like a helmet, a full crown, so to speak. And that poked into the head of Jesus, producing a lot of blood. And what's interesting is on the top of the head, it's very, very sensitive. So we can see all throughout the head of Jesus marks from this crown of thorns. And what's interesting is that no person in recorded history in the Roman Empire was ever crucified with a crown of thorns. So just validates it and is compatible, consistent with that of Jesus's crucifixion.
Any thoughts or feelings about this?
That's awesome. I mean, yesterday I did that debate, and it was with a bunch of skeptics, and you streamed with him too. I think Objective Ethics,
Okay, yeah.
and he doesn't think Jesus Christ was crucified, which I was kind of astounded by. You know, I didn't realize that some
Who
people don't
did
think he was
Objective
crucified.
Ethics didn't think
He doesn't think Jesus
he
Christ was crucified. which is really
Okay.
interesting. I didn't know that was a legitimate opinion people held, so I've got to kind of readjust to that.
But maybe he didn't even think Jesus existed or something, because he's kind of agnostic atheist. So,
yeah, which is a really rare opinion. No, we were talking about this. I think we're going to talk about it more, but
hmm.
he did an interview with Dr. Richard Carrier, who is apparently a mythicist. So it seems to me like they believe that Jesus Christ just simply wasn't the person that the Gospels display. So he even that he wasn't crucified, um, and basically it sounded like they thought Jesus Christ was stoned to death by Jews, and so kind of a basically just a different story. So just really
Hmm.
attacking, the biblical story. So hopefully we can unpack that. I'm not an expert on it because it's just something that I haven't encountered somebody rejecting the whole story. In fact, one of the only, um, and I think we might have talked. And by the way, and so I was on that stream, and there was another skeptic that was telling me things about God, and that God, you think if God exists, that He would give miracles to prove His existence on the regular. Well, He
Hmm.
does. He does. There's things like the Shroud of Turin. There's the Tulma in Mexico and Guadalupe of Our Lady. That's also a similar image. It's an ongoing miracle. It's an image of Our Lady on Saint Juan Diego's Tulma, which is a piece of clothing he had. So if you understand that story, there's another image of Jesus that's also miraculous. It's the veil of Veronica. Veronica means true icon, and basically,
Hmm.
a tradition gives her name. Her given name was Seraphima. But if you ever see the Passion of the Christ, there's a woman who's a saint who, during Jesus Christ's passion, she goes and she wipes his face. She tries to give him water or something like that, but she wipes his face, and in
Hmm.
return, he gives her this miraculous image. Well, we still have that. That's Veronica's veil. There's a whole devotion in the
And
Catholic
what's
Church
kind of,
called.
if you just go into that into a little bit detail, what's miraculous about it? Is like we can see this is pretty miraculous, this Shroud
Mhm.
of Turin, because it's like who makes a negative image in the first place, and on top of that, there's 3D
Yeah.
data in this thing, and then nobody knows how to even create this thing, and it was accepted like to be from his time. People have kept it for so long,
Mhm.
even though they couldn't prove it was him. But now the evidence seemed to be just coming out more and more that it was Jesus. You see, they
Mhm.
couldn't date it before. They didn't know about carbon dating when it was first kept by the Christians. You know,
Well,
it's a
there has always been
miracle.
back
Oh,
and
yeah, go
forth
on.
on the dating, and like I said, I'm not an expert of that, but I did talk to an atheist about that, and he sent me an article, and I've talked to Catholic, academics about it. But basically, people always go back and forth. Personally, I don't find carbon dating to be that reliable, but I have heard the skeptical opinion of the shroud is that it was kind of manufactured in the medieval period. So what you're saying here about the nature of the photography, it's a photographic image is the best
Hmm.
description of it, which is produced with light, and I think, that would be great because obviously they couldn't do that during the medieval period.
They didn't
And
know. Yeah, photography didn't exist. Yeah, go on.
Veronica's
So
veil, I
what?
believe, is similar. It's a photographic image. In fact,
Oh wow.
Jesus Christ is light. So um, he's the true light of the world. So there's actually a lot of miracles uh, that are involving light in this kind of way. And what I've always heard is that basically the energy and the heat that it would take to do that should have destroyed the thing.
Hmm.
Another similar example. It's not a photographic image, but it's one of the most famous public miracles was Our Lady of Fatima, where she there was a crowd that was soaking wet from rain, and she dried them out with the miracle of the sun. And so that's another example where there was this light and heat that should have killed everybody, but instead it left them miraculously dry. And there were skeptics there that were converted because she did that. So miracles are replete.
Okay.
Right now in Italy, in Naples, you can go and see Saint. Johnny Arias's blood, which is he was a martyr. He's a teenager actually, and a bishop, which is kind of interesting. But his blood turns viscous every year. Yeah, there you go, Veronica's veil. So there's a devotion in the Catholic Church called the Holy Face, and
Yeah.
obviously Veronica's veil.
Is there so there's some sort of scientific thing that you can sort of verify in some ways? You're saying
Yeah, there is. I
it's a
just don't know much
photographic
about it
negative?
off the top of my head.
Cloth
I mean,
that still
can I have
bears
a
the
quick look
miraculous
at
image
this?
of Jesus' face? According to Christian tradition, as Jesus carried his cross, a woman named Veronica wiped his face with a veil. When she pulled it away, his image was miraculously imprinted on the cloth. The image wasn't painted, it appeared mysteriously, as if imprinted by something divine. Today, a cloth believed to be the original is kept inside St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican, rarely displayed, tightly guarded, and surrounded by secrecy. Was this the first true image of Jesus?
They don't seem to be saying similar things, scientific things about this, like the Shroud of Turin, which was photographic negative, and but maybe it's only a YouTube short. I just done one quick search. I don't know, but they don't seem
Well,
to
I said it
be
was
jumping.
miraculously. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, miraculous can have different. Like, I'm trying to convince,
Well,
let's say,
they
somebody
said
who's secular.
it's a photographic image. It's not as complete as the Shroud of Turin.
Oh, did they say it was a photographic negative? Is that what they said at some point?
I believe so.
A photographic
They
negative,
said
because
his
that
image
would be.
appeared when she pulled it away.
And I mean, that would be quite surprising if you could get a photographic negative by wiping somebody's face, because you don't get the shape of a person. I mean, that would be pretty crazy if that happened. Just from that.
According to Christian tradition, as Jesus carried his cross, a woman named Veronica wiped his face with a veil. When she pulled it away, his image was miraculously imprinted on the cloth. The image wasn't painted, it appeared mysteriously, as if imprinted by something divine.
I mean, it didn't say photographic, but
It didn't say
okay.
photograph. His image is imprinted, which
imprinted.
if
But
you
yeah,
wipe your face with a piece of cloth, your face is not on the cloth. You know. Like,
yeah, normally it's not. That's
Yeah.
pretty interesting. It'll be interesting to see too. But I think it doesn't really compare to this Turin Shroud. So that's just a lot of
Yeah, the Shroud of
scientific
Turin is
evidence.
great. These
Yeah.
are both like
Okay,
probably
so
the two most famous.
yeah,
relics.
and as the video on the Turin
I mean,
Shroud
besides-
said that. Okay. So
Is there a delay?
I suppose maybe, I'm not sure. But okay, so the question I guess was, is there anything to the level of scientific test that kind of I don't know, to the level of miraculous nature that is supported by scientific instruments like the Turin Shroud?
Yes, but it's not very pro Islam, and it's not very pro Protestant. But they have done a lot of tests on a number of different Blessed Sacrament. So I don't know if you want to talk about that. I do want to know the Muslim perspective on these things with Jesus Christ. But
sure,
in the Catholic
okay.
Church,
So
we have the true presence. We have the Blessed Sacrament. The Blessed Sacrament is literally the body, soul, and divinity, and blood. It's body, soul, blood, and divinity of Jesus Christ in every Mass, and there have been every valid Mass, and there have been many, many tests done on a number of these things. That basically, like one of them I heard was that they gave it to a heart doctor, and he tested it, and he said it was heart cells that were, not only was it heart cell. It was heart, what's the word, tissue, but it was under. He said he could tell that it was from somebody who was under extreme duress and stress, and there's been
Hmm.
other things where it bleeds and things like that. So lots of scientific testing with that. The
Right.
Catholic Church has a
Okay.
lot of miracles, uh, some of which you might not even. A lot of them have to do with the Blessed Mother, where they allow the scientific community to test things regularly. There's been like bleeding statues. There's been the House of Loretto, which was a house, the Blessed Mother's house that was miraculously moved from one country to another. Uh, so yeah, so there's a lot of stuff
Some
like that.
there was a house that it's been recorded to be in one country and then suddenly appears in another country.
Yep.
Which country did it start from and where did it end up?
Um, it was, I think it was, it moved in different places in Italy. I think it might have even been further east. It was originally in the middle. It was in Israel originally, and I believe the
Hmm.
Venetians moved it or something. I can't remember the whole story. But if you just look up House of Loretto, you'll learn about it. At one point, it was moved because the people who had it in their town were basically sinful, and so God took it away from them. It's pretty cool. But it's called the Holy
Okay.
House of
And whose house was it? The Holy House of who?
Mary,
Mary. Okay, it used to be Mary's house,
childhood
and
home.
it's been childhood home. Okay, it's been moving around. Okay, interesting. I haven't heard of it. Okay.
Yeah, people don't hear about
So
these things, but they're common knowledge, easy to find out about. And then I get atheists all the time. I get Protestants that are like, how come there are no miracles today? Well, twice every year, Saint January's blood. That's one miracle. So yeah, there are miracles every year. I mean, miracles are
okay,
common.
so Saint who again? Maybe we can put that on the screen.
Yeah, I don't want
Saint.
to overwhelm things. Look
Ah, it's
up.
okay.
You can look up Saint Januarius.
Saint January. Is that who's is that where January comes from? Or something. Sounds a bit-
January. He was
Yeah.
named after apparently the god Januarius, but
Yeah.
he's a bishop.
So we'll have a quick look at it, and then you said you had some questions to ask me about it. I mean, I think we both agree that it's in terms of the Turin Shroud, it's pretty amazing,
Yeah.
and it's not just amazing, but like like it's hard to even replicate, and it matches up with so many stories, and there's too many coincidences around Turin Shroud for it to be a fake, I guess. The fact that it was kept for so long and they couldn't prove that it was Jesus. In fact, it didn't even look too much like Jesus because it's just like it wasn't clear until it was photographed. So it's just way too interesting. But let's listen
Hmm.
to this. I've never heard about Saint
Coagulated blood
Januarius.
of St. Januarius is stored in two hermetically sealed small ampules, or vials, held in a silver reliquary. The two ampules mysteriously liquefy 3 times a year. The first takes place on the first Saturday of May, which recalls the translation of his bones from Pozzuoli to Capodimonte. The Archbishop holds the reliquary up and tilts it side to side to show that the contents are solid. After ritual prayers by the faithful, the coagulated blood in the larger vial begins to liquefy. The Archbishop then holds up the vial and tilts it again.
I mean, from a scientific point of view, we don't have the instruments saying like there isn't what's actually in there. Can we test what's in there? Is there something in this stuff affecting the blood, right? So it's harder. It doesn't meet the same levels. Maybe it's real, maybe it's not, but it doesn't mean it meet anywhere near the same levels as the shroud. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
the shroud has
Like,
been tested quite a bit. Yeah, if you wanted to talk about something that's been tested a lot, the Eucharistic miracles are probably the best ones to
okay,
go to. But if Do you guys
Let's
have
go
a
to
lot?
like.
So
Go
wait.
on.
So
Go on. Go on.
Muslims.
You ask me the questions. Go for it. Go on.
Yeah. So Muslims. Do you guys have a lot of miracles? Are there like regular miracles in Islamic countries and stuff like that?
We believe in personal miracles, so each person will experience God lots of ways. We don't think God is quiet or something, or just doesn't participate in our lives. It's like a normal part of my life all the time. Like if I'm tired, God will change my schedule or something, help me in endless ways, right?
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, I've had
so and
stuff like that happen too.
yeah, and I believe that, right? So I think God helps everybody or anybody who trusts God and does their best to do God's will. Then, if you're a Christian or Jew or whatever it happened to be, um, God is not stingy in his help, right? So God understands you, your perspective, where you came from. And what I mean by you came from is like maybe from my perspective, you might think, okay, I was born as a Christian, and then for whatever reason, maybe I'm not saying this is true, but this is just from my perspective that you might find it hard to become a Muslim right now at your current point in time. Why would God say, I'm not going to help you until you do a million, something that's incredibly difficult? You are doing a lot in whichever way, um, given your background. This is just from a Muslim perspective, right? Without
Thank
being
you.
so,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's nice.
So
Do you
why
guys?
would God be stingy in like showing you his help? Right.
Mhm.
So I can quite easily believe that God helps you, God helps me, and all this kind of stuff, and many other people. Um, but I would say the big miracles are the Quran. The Quran has got lots of scientific miracles. For example, it talks about the Big Bang and so many, like the lowest point on Earth, and
Interesting.
so many things that just weren't known at the time they were written. Um, that's one really solid miracle that you can test because it's in black and white. There's evidence that hasn't changed for since it was written. And like there's so many copies of it. To say that like you would have to radically change it and radically reinterpret it to get rid of those miracles. So there's like it's a really solid black and white miracle that's can be checked on. And there are also other miracles of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, for example, said that when the second coming of Jesus would come, X, Y, and Z would happen in a very precise time. So, for example, the eclipse of the sun and the moon would happen on certain days of the month of Ramadan. And I'm a believer in the second coming of Jesus, like he's already come, but metaphorically. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I don't believe
Don't you
he would
believe he
literally
already came?
come, but yeah, I believe he's already come, but not Jesus himself, but somebody in his name, just like Jesus talked about. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but Jesus didn't believe in literal second comings. Like when Jesus was asked about how comes he had come when Elijah was supposed to, there's supposed to be a second coming of Elijah. And he said that Elijah was John the Baptist. So he believed in metaphorical second coming. So we are like Jesus. We believe in metaphorical second coming. We don't believe old prophets are reused. You know.
Yeah, I mean,
It-
there's the in Revelation in Apocalypse, um, it's it's said that Elijah will come. There are two witnesses in the time of the Antichrist, and Elijah is one of them, and Enoch is
hmm.
the other one because those two biblically, those two are recorded as being taken away, and there's a whole thing about that they're right now alive at the earthly paradise is one of the common. So
So
you,
do
you can
Christians believe that? Because according to
yes,
Jesus,
yep,
the second
very
coming of
common.
Elijah has already happened in the name of in the form of John the Baptist.
Yeah, well, um, so people asked him why, and he said John the Baptist was Elijah. Basically, it's similar to a lot of the prophecies in the Bible where they have one fulfillment at one time, and then they have a different fulfillment, and it's a more full fulfillment. So, for instance, Cyrus the Great was the Persian. He was called the Messiah. So, and that was understood as being a partial fulfillment of the coming of the Messiah, this great king that set the Jews free.
Right.
Even Moses is in some ways considered that. But the prophecies happened after Moses, so they were kind of looking back at Moses. God does this with history. God does this repetitive thing it's very profound historically. These cycles that he repeats, and there's been a lot of actually Catholic saints and mystics that have talked about that in detail and have told us what's going to happen on a grand historical level. So
Right. But I think that, like, an answer to your question, like, what do Muslims believe that, like, there are miracles that prove the existence of God, essentially. There are different levels. There's like proving God exists, and then there's proving God is personal and
right,
still talks and all this kind of stuff. And I think nature is that evidence. It's like it is an undeniable evidence that God exists. So
right,
if, like, you're trying to take an atheist through a journey of believing more and more, the first step is believing there's a God, and you can't actually deny that God exists. It's like not logical, it's not even mathematical. Like, there's not enough time for all of these things to evolve. Like, not even, I've talked about it in brief, and I'll probably given another chance, maybe explain it in more detail. You cannot even have a drop of blood evolve through random mutations
in evolution,
from the beginning of beginning of the universe. Like, even
yeah,
that's being really kind to the theory of evolution, to
right,
start the clock at the beginning of the universe, because the parts of blood that were required to, the are not even blood, like hemoglobin, which is a lot smaller than blood, right?
right,
Do you need like
right,
250 million to make a drop of blood, right?
yeah.
The
It's a very
the
complex thing.
Yeah, those things didn't even exist. So
Well, it
we're
has
being
DNA in
kind.
it. Yes,
Yeah,
that's
they
right.
didn't exist at the beginning of the universe. You just had helium and just basic elements, right? So basically, it's impossible. It's just impossible. And even that hot idea of mutations being random, that can be disproved. Like, more and more evidence is coming out that mutations are very selective. It's like they don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not an empiricist and I'm not a biologist. That's not really how my mind works. I'm more into the philosophical understandings. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of philosophical problems with evolution that have to do with the fact of complexity and
Yeah.
something, not being able to give trade. You can't go to you can't one thing cannot lead to another thing that it does not contain itself. You can't give what you don't have is a philosophical principle. So basically,
Okay.
an intelligent, rational being can create another intelligent, rational being. It can also
Yeah.
create an intelligent being, like an animal. It can create an unintelligent being, like a vegetable, because it has the traits. Not saying it's this, it can also create an immaterial thing. What cannot happen is a material thing cannot create an intelligent thing. That's a philosophical problem with evolution. But
Yeah, and I would agree. Even like outside the realms of philosophy, you could say we do not have any practical example of, let's say, I don't know, this unintelligent phone creating something that has intelligence. It just doesn't happen. We don't have examples. We
right,
don't have even scientifically, we know there's a law of thermodynamics that says that you work things devolve, they don't evolve, they don't
yep,
become
yeah,
more
genetic entropy.
complex.
Yep, yeah,
Yeah,
and I
that's
believe in
right.
that. People will say it's refuted. I mean, these arguments end
It's
up
not
being so
refuted. People make a
right.
lot of claims, empty claims where there's no evidence. Like, we've had the
Yeah,
discussion with there's somebody who's talking over me all the time. I can't remember what his name is. In when I was discussing with objective ethics.
right.
Um tour. I can't
Oh
remember,
yeah,
text or
sure,
something.
yeah.
Yeah, and then I
For sure.
invited him, but he's never come back. Well, he's responded, but he never made time to actually have a live stream. So
Well,
people
God
make a
bless him.
lot of,
Well, so
yeah.
those people are very intelligent. I don't discount them, because here's my take on that is
Hmm.
I think that those fields are so complex because they're empirically derived. So you have to get all these little data points, and then from that you can draw your conclusions. That's what people consider the scientific method.
Hmm.
And so that way of acquiring knowledge is a very difficult way of acquiring knowledge. It involves a lot of like really really tiny observations that have to be,
Okay.
and so I don't actually think it's a great way to acquire knowledge, in my opinion. But people love it, and they think that the scientific method's the best thing that exists.
Hmm.
But the thing is when you're doing it, it is so complex and it is so difficult because you have to create a sterile environment. And you have to have this whole apparatus, this whole institution that tests things. You have to have peers that do it, and so anyway, point being, there's so much data that what ends up happening in arguments is that you have some people with some data and you have other people with other data, and the conclusions you can draw are totally contradictory, and
I'm I'm
nobody
not.
really has
Yeah,
the intellect to grasp it all at once, and so
I have a
it's
problem with
really
looking at
complex.
things like that because then you think, you see, God in the Quranic perspective makes it easy to understand the
Yeah.
truth.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't want to
Exactly.
say that there's so much data and that data just could be interpreted
It's just
any
not.
way.
Well, it's not that you have to do that. It's that
I would
that's the
say that I've
method.
seen wherever I've seen, okay, wherever I've seen scientific scientists claim that God doesn't exist, that evidence, like there's a um, Richard Dawkins, very famous atheist scientist, right? He's written a book called The Blind Watchmaker. You could take parts of his book and you could easily disprove his claims because they're so weak. So I could easily, like, for example, the point about the blood about blood not being possible to evolve, even if you started from the beginning of the universe and you had a trillion random mutations every millisecond, right? Even if you were that kind, okay,
Mhm.
mathematically there's no chance of even a drop of blood being made, right? And he's the one who brought up the whole thing about hemoglobin, right? And you
Sure.
could
Yeah.
see in his writing how dishonest he is. Like what he does is just roughly explaining his kind of the way he was talking about it. He would say, there are these four strands. Forget three of them that made hemoglobin. Just forget them. Doesn't matter. Just concentrate on one of them. Why would you do that? Why would you be, like if you forget three
Ignore the.
strands of enzymes, that means you're saying it's too complex. Let's make it less complex. These are the kind of things that he would say in his book. So as soon as you try to write down in black and white any proof against God, you'll be disproved easily. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, so
Yeah.
it's I don't.
You must know
Yeah,
more about it than I do. So
I know
exciting.
some things, right? But you just go into you can just go to looking into any um creation of God. So the Quran says something really interesting. It says, look at a fly. Look at all the people you depend on if you're an atheist, other than God. All of these people cannot create even a fly. So, for example, bring all your scientists. They cannot create even a fly, and you're saying these were made by accident. Like these
That's
are
true.
sort
Yeah.
of very like intuitive ideas. You think they want to create an illusion. Oh, evolution by random mutations. It sounds good somehow, but these Quranic verses kind of break the spell, as it were. Like,
Yeah.
how stupid does it suddenly sound? All these scientists are saying this was made by accident. But they can't all come together to make a fly. Like, recently they tried to map out the brain of a fly, and it was just mind-boggling. All the millions and billions of neurons that just in a fly's brain, So
That's
these
very
things are
interesting. Yeah.
incredible. Just look
Well,
at
what's funny
absolutely
is
anything. Yeah. Go
What's
on.
funny is if you cooperate with God, you can make a fly. All you have to do is put a piece of meat out in the sun, I said that to atheists one time. They were talking about well, when are we going to invent the food replicator from Star Trek, that will give us infinite food? And it's like, well, God made soil a long time ago. All you got to do is you take a seed and you put it in
Hmm.
soil and you can replicate food. It's actually not that complicated. People overcomplicate. A lot of people have never done gardening or farming, and they don't know it's
But
actually
you're not
really, really easy.
creating a fly from meat, are you? Because it doesn't
No,
come.
God is. God is. So you're cooperating with
Yeah,
Him.
God is.
That's
Yeah.
my
Okay,
point.
sure. Yeah. Okay. So, and just as part of the plan, I was saying, okay, so both of us believe, coming back to the whole Turin Shroud quickly, um, we both we're both confident that this is Jesus' shroud. Okay. But then we
Yeah.
must diverge at some point. Like, you believe that was God inside the shroud, the Son of God, and I believe it was a prophet, right?
Well, so I
And
wanted to ask you.
yeah.
Um,
Shall I
we kind
quickly
of
ask
got.
you my question and then
Okay,
quickly,
sure, sure.
and then because I want to kind of get that out of the way.
Go ahead and do it.
So even if that shroud covered Jesus and he came out, right, miraculously, okay, does that mean so it came out of what? Is it called the sarcophagus? Like the tomb that
Yeah,
he was kept
tune,
in?
tune.
Yeah. Okay, he was kept in, and he comes out after 3 days, as he promised in the Bible, because he said, I will not show you any sign except for the sign of Jonah.
Hmm.
My quick question to you is that does that really mean he's God if the sign of Jonah was not a sign of somebody who came back to life? Because no Christian really believes that he died in the belly of the whale and came back to life. He
Right.
just survived it. So if Jesus said that was his sign, that means he's saying he wouldn't die, he would just survive. What would be your response to that?
Well, I have to go back to the Gospels. So there are other miracles. Elijah raises somebody from the dead. Jesus Christ raises somebody from the dead. But Jesus Christ talks repeatedly in other things he said, describing what's about to happen to him as he's teaching in the Gospels. I think St. John goes into it the most, but maybe St. Matthew, where he says, I will die and I will be given up to death, all these things. And so it's pretty explicit and repeated. The sign of Jonah or Jonas is a very interesting line because he's saying that to the Pharisees and he's kind of denying them the explicit teaching that he's giving to the apostles. And he does that repeatedly with the Pharisees because they're so proud. It's also interesting because Jesus Christ is God, and he says that knowing that me and you are going to talk about it right now. Everybody that's ever going to read it is going to read it. And the fact that he picked Jonah instead of, for instance, Elijah or somebody else, Ezekiel, somebody else that had these things going on. He picked Jonah is really interesting because Jonah, this might even be more interesting for you, but Jonah tried to run away from the will of God, and because he was racist, you could say, because he did not want, for a good reason, the Ninevites were killing, Jewish children, dashing them against rocks and stuff like that. And he did not want them to be saved. And he accuses God of being too merciful. So the fact that Jesus Christ associates himself with that prophet is fascinating to me. That's something I've been thinking about.
Yeah, I mean that's not what I understood. I understood that he tried to help those people and they didn't accept, and he gave up.
Jonas? No, he
Before,
helped those people. No, he did help those people. Jonas was told by God to go to Nineveh and ask and tell them to repent, and he
yes,
did. And eventually, so first he went the other direction, and he then the whole thing with the whale happened, and then he came back and obeyed God after that. He repented, he obeyed God after that, and then the Ninevites,
Okay.
he went.
Maybe I have to
he kind of
check that
rushed it.
because that wasn't my understanding. Because my understanding was that he attempted to help the people, but they didn't listen. So he thought, okay, they're not listening. I'm going to escape before anything bad happens to these people. And
Do you guys
then
read the New Testament a lot? Do Muslims believe in the New Testament? Because, like,
we
one.
go on.
Go ahead.
We generally do. We take interest in the Bible. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I think
What
there's
is
some
going on?
delay. Can you hear me?
There's something going on in my computer now.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I don't like it.
I think your computer's crashing, maybe. Hope it's not crashing on my side. Seems to be smooth enough. Let me just message him on WhatsApp. So he gave an intriguing response that, oh yeah, sorry, it has, I'll take it. Okay. So that's an intriguing response that Jesus said to a group of people, the only sign that you're going to get is the sign of Jonah. But maybe to other people, he said, so the sign of Jonah is that not of death, but of survival. And to other people, he gave a different sign. So that's kind of deceptive. That's something I'd like to ask Nathaniel. Why would you give a sign that said, I'm not going to die, I'm going to survive? That's the sign you're going to get. And to other people, he's saying, oh, I am going to die, not survive. So I'm not sure if that's something that is acceptable from a God, really, an all-powerful God, to lie, to confuse people. So that's intriguing. Yeah, in the Quran, we don't have any sort of concept of God tricking people or God telling people that here's a sign for you, and here's a contradictory sign for somebody else. I mean, the Quran literally says there is no contradictions in the Quran. So that would be a contradiction by a person. I mean, let's say a person who's not biased, I guess. You could say that's a contradiction. On one side, you're claiming that God says he will survive, come back from death, from the dead, and on the other side, say I'm not going to come back from being dead. I'm going to just survive. So that's what I would like to quickly ask Nathaniel when we wind up. What else does it say? If we come back to, let me just give me a thumbs up on WhatsApp. Okay, so yeah, what else is there to say about this Shroud of Turin? I'm not convinced about these other things that Nathaniel was talking about, the other miracles within the Catholic Church, because they're not easy to test. I think the great thing about the Quran as a miracle is easy to test. It says, like, the Quran says this. Is it true? Yes or no? Are we interpreting it in some way? Yes or no? All these kind of things. There's so many things that we can test directly because it's a black and white text. So yeah, the Quran, for example, talks about how where sperm is made. You might think it's made in the testicles, but it's not. It's made in a very different place. And the Quran very accurately describes where it comes from and where it's manufactured. There's so many things like that. It talks about signs of all living things are made out of water, which is what NASA agrees with, because that's why NASA searches for water on planets as signs of life. So a lot of really interesting scientific and even historical evidences that even contradict the Bible. For example, the Bible talks about the leader of the Egyptians at the time of, which prophet was it? Joseph. The Bible calls that leader the Pharaoh, but the Quran calls that leader the king, which is actually more accurate. There was no Pharaoh at the time of Joseph, Prophet Joseph. So lots of really interesting things there. Maybe I'll wind up. Can we just asking? Let me see. I think it'd take a minute, he says. Let's maybe give a minute. That was 5 minutes ago. How is your computer doing? It'd be nice to wind it up at least with him doing. How many? Maybe it's difficult. I don't want to put too much pressure. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I'm always interested in if people got comments. Maybe they can ask questions in a non-live comments if they're not going to join now. Yeah, but it's certainly a very, very interesting relic from the past, and too many things are aligning to just to completely deny it. Even now, people don't understand how the Shroud of Turin was made. So pretty amazing. You should be at least amazed by it, at least, even if you're not religious. How was such a thing made? Why would anybody make a photographic negative when nobody even believed or knew? So nobody even knew or could even imagine the idea of a photograph. So, okay, cool. I think I'm going to wind up here. So I was just telling him, no pressure. I'll leave. Is it? He hasn't seen the message. I think. Cool. I just told him no problem, because it looks like if he isn't back now, there must be some serious problems with the computer. I appreciate you joining me for the time you could. Thanks. Okay, cool. Cool. I'm always grateful for all the guests that do join me. Every now and then this happens, some sort of confusion, because we're all busy doing different things. We're not full-time professionals. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions or thoughts, do ask your questions. I try to respond to the comments. Thank you very much. Bye.